Ay, 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 ay. The whole teaching of the Chandi Path is, how many excuses are you going to make to not wake up? How many notes are you going to take? How many books are you going to read? How many courses are you going to go to? What are you going to do? You want to wake up, or do you want to hear about it? You decide. And why does waking up mean that that's it? You're done. You've woken up. It's not. You have to maintain it. You have to stay awake. You can't just wake up and then go be a jackass in the world. You can't do that. If you're going to wake up, then wake up. Stay awake. Be conscious. Be aware. Observe yourself. Every breath, every bite you eat, everything you say. Observe yourself. Are you being true? Are you awake? Or are you just half asleep, pretending to be half awake? Which one are you? Today is our 24th class of this work we've been doing. That means 1 full year we are finishing today, of those who joined me back in August. 24 classes. Are you awake? Are you waking up? Did you have a moment of awakening today? Did you have an aha? Or did you just want to have a trance? There's a big difference between spacing out in trance state and being awake. Big difference. See, the problem is that we feel continuously sorry for ourselves. That people don't understand me. I'm disconnected from the world. I'm not fulfilling my purpose. I don't know what I've got to do. I'm impotent. I can't get going. I feel alone. I feel like nobody understands me. Good God, how many things we tell ourselves. So don't you think all of that stuff stops us from being awake? Don't you think so? They describe karma as this: the interlocking Maya knots of your life. Just think of how many consciousnesses you have, how many thoughts you have, all knotting up together and creating a wonderful weave that's your karma. All contributed to by your ego. And we saw earlier that this ignorance of who I really am leads me to desire, that leads me to karma. The stupid actions and words I say to get what I want. But all I got to do is remember who I really am and get past this Mahamaya, this illusion that I need to fill my life with things, relationships, with correct love, with correct need, with correct everything. Some people doing it for me, giving me that love. It's not going to happen. You have to find it yourself. You have to wake up. So there's a great story about Vamana. Have a look at this picture. There's a little dwarf and a priest and a king. And I'll tell you this story. It's a very fascinating story. There once was a king who thought that his name was Bali. And he thought that Bali means the sands of time. That means the arrogance that thinks you are great, even though you dust away like the sands of time. And he didn't believe in God. He didn't believe in the Shaktis. He didn't believe in Shiva. He didn't believe in anything, Vishnu, nothing. But he thought it was his duty to be a good king and to show people that he cared, even though he was an arrogant prick, narcissist, did not believe in caring about his country or his people or his kingdom. And Bali was very arrogant, very narcissistic. But he wanted to show how great a king he was. So he kept having these functions where he'd give away stuff. And so he called the biggest event of his kingdom's history. And he said, everybody come and I'll give you something. The great, the good, everybody will get something. So rich people came to get favors, and institutions came to get funding, and people came to get cash, and people came from all over. Poor people came to get donations and money and save their skins. And then suddenly, this very little dwarf, Vamana means dwarf, light, a dwarf comes up. And he's glowing, radiant, glowing blue dwarf. And so everybody kind of clears the path, and he walks right into the hall and right up to the king. And he goes, and he comes up to the king and he says, come. And, you're obviously a holy man. Tell me what you want, little man, and I'll give it to you. And he said, I want a piece of land from you. And he said, yes, you can have a piece of land. How big a piece of land would you like? And he says, I will take 3 steps. And I only want those 3 steps. My 3 steps will be the land I want. So the king said, come, are you crazy? You have 2 little feet. How big a step can you take? Ask for much more than that. Ask for anything you like. And his holy advisor realized that this was a trick of some kind and said, no, don't agree to anything. Don't do it. But the king, in his narcissism, said, no, I must keep my word and give him whatever he wants. After all, this poor little fellow, what can he do? So I said, I grant you, take 3 steps, and whatever 3 steps you get, that will be the land you get. So then Vamana, who was an avatar of Vishnu, expands and grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And the first step he takes, he crosses the whole earth. And he says, the earth is mine. The second step he takes, he becomes so big that he crosses the entire heavens, and the whole universe is mine. And he says, what should I step on next? And he's about to take the next step. And the king realizes his folly, King Bali. And he says, I have learned my lesson. You step on my head, and that will be your 3rd step. And at that moment, he realized himself. Fascinating story, that what we think we are limits us to realizing that tiny little Vamana in my heart, the light, the little diya lit in my heart, is called the Vamana, in the Hridaya. A little tiny little Atma is the entire universe, is the mind behind everything. And so I treat it like a dwarf, and I try and make up all these other things around it. And all the while it's just sitting there waiting to wake up, for you to wake up. It never goes anywhere. It's there with you the whole time. So in the old traditions, they used to talk about Manu, meaning that the divine gives you a chance to realize in your mind that you are it. You are the divine one. Then it says, okay, you don't get that one, I'll give you Indra, meaning I'll give you super mind, so that all the devis and angels and beings will come to you and tell you that you are greater than you are. And so you don't believe that either. So then I give you Agni, Chandi, the fire of universal energy. And that burns away everything and reminds you who you really are. Manu, Indra, Agni, the three states. Manu, the mind that reflects the light. Indra, the supersensory mind. And Agni, the fire behind everything. But what blocks us is called tamas, the dark disconnection at the bottom of our body. And there are many types of ego that come. These are some of the ego types that they talk about in the ancient Indian ideas. They talk about your part of you that's scared, anxious all the time, fearful. Corona, COVID, unemployment, money, what's going to happen? What's going to do it? Kapurush, it's called. The Kapurushic side of you, the scared one. Then you have the Kuberic side of you. Kubera was a great king of Sri Lanka, and he only wanted possessions. He didn't care about anything, so he got destroyed by his brother Ravana. So anybody who wants only stuff, not the spiritual life, not the mind life, only stuff, Kuberic ego. The Gandharvic ego is, Gandharvas were the dancers and singers of the gods. So the Gandharvic ego is the ego that is, party like there's no tomorrow, eat, drink, and be merry. Hedonism, dance and sing and life. There's only one life. Live it up completely and end it. But no compassion, no awakening, no desire to seek any kind of cosmic liberation in your being. Pisacha, that's the ugly, monstrous part of you, lethargic, slothful. Rakshasa, Rakshas means demonic, destructive, forceful part of you. Asura, the demonic side of you, which gets obsessed with things. And then Vamana, we just saw that when you have no idea of Vamanic thinking, your arrogance, that you think you have everything, but you don't. So these are some of the ego things that you read about. So if you really begin to understand Indian wisdom, and you can even look at Homeric Greek wisdom in the same way, is that the nature of the gods, the goddesses, the stories are psychology. Remember, we talked about this idea that there are two ways you can approach life. One is psychological, of therapy and dealing with the shadows, clearing up the cobwebs, facing your unconscious mind, working with your subconscious self. And the other is magic and imagination and invoking these energies to come and help you. So when we approach life and these egos, we have to do both. We have to approach it psychologically. So let's say, for example, you're tamasic, which means that you can't get going. You're lethargic. You just don't want to do anything. You feel impotent. You just feel like this coronavirus is crushing me. I can't do anything. I don't want to do anything. Then the counter to that is to bring about your action side, to make the goddesses come, to make you action-filled, rajasic. Do something, dream, plan, do something. So you counter tamas with rajas. Then you counter rajas, action, with tranquility, sattva. But even sattva leads to ego of different kind. So you counter that with Durga, divine intervention. When you can't control yourself anymore, let the higher consciousness come and help you. So Durga, Chandi, comes when we want to clean things up and we don't have the wherewithal to do it by ourselves. We need some help. And we don't want to go to a Jungian analyst. We don't want to go to a therapist or a mindfulness based therapist or a cognitive CBT therapist. We want to do it, or a hypnotist or whatever. We need grace to come. But even grace is a psychological state.